Hi, I'm going to go over my family's recipe for cooking brisket. I started off with about a 5 pound piece of brisket, um, good picture of it, carrots and onion. Use 4 cups of carrots, 2 cups of onion, salt, pepper, garlic, bay leaf, ketchup, and some tomato sauce. Cook it in a 13-inch pan. This is the fat cap on this, pretty lean for a brisket. I weighed out the salt. That's what I started with. Garlic. Let's see if the picture shows the whole thing. I deliberately salt, pepper, and garlic the meat. You really can't go too bad with this. Don't be afraid to use it. A little oil in the pan to help start the searing of the brisket. Get that hot. Turn on your exhaust because you're going to smoke if you're doing this right, and you're going to sear the brisket on both sides and all the edges. While that's going on, cut up your onion, your garlic, your carrots. See, it's 4 cups of onion there. Carrots, you cut off the ends and the tips. You don't have to peel it. It's all going to be pureed. Goes into sauce. Actually, my dog likes the carrots, so he gets the tips and ends. Of course, the chop doesn't really matter here. It's all going to get pureed at the end. There's 4 cups of carrots there. That's what brisket looks like when it's well seared. I'm going to put that on a plate and let that cool. Into the pot, I'm going to add some oil, and I'm going to start to brown the onions. I want to get a good caramelization of the onions here. It's going to develop the sweetness. Throw in your carrots. Again, you're trying to develop the sweetness in the carrots. I'm using a Teflon pot here, about 3 to 4 to 5. I'm using whole bay leaf because I'm going to fish that out. A little defrosted tomato sauce. Here's the secret ingredient: tomato ketchup. I'm going to give a good squeeze for that. Possibly about 2 to 3 tablespoons. I'm going to take a kettle, bring some boiling water over, and bring up the brisket until it's just barely uncovered. Put a lid on it, and I'm going to bring this up to a nice simmer. And I'm going to let this simmer for about 2 to 3 hours until the fork goes into pretty easily. Take the brisket out, put it on a plate, separate the gravy to separate the solids from the liquid. I'm going to let the liquid sit overnight in the refrigerator so the fat comes to the top of the surface. I'm going to puree that with the solids, get a nice gravy out of it. The brisket is nice now and cold. You can see there's barely any fat left on top of my gravy. I've set my mandolin to about 1/8 of an inch there, even less, 1/16 of an inch. Use a aluminum cating tray there. I layer in my using my mandolin to slice the brisket. The brisket is nice and cold. It slices just beautifully on this machine. It's really effortless to do it this way. Great trick, hint here and trick to technique to do this. Throw the bay leaves on the bottom. You don't want to puree that because it's no good for the sauce. I'm going to trim the brisket and take the fat off. And this is what the brisket starts looking like when I trim it with the mandolin. I lay that into the catering tray. Here's the defatted gravy. I'm going to add the onions and carrots, run that through. You can see it develops a really thick, beautiful gravy. Nope, I have oatmeal behind me, but it has nothing to do with this recipe. Pour that right in, move the meat around so the meat is saturating all the gravy. I saved some of the bits and pieces for the dog. Gotta be careful because it's got garlic and onion, which are both no-nos for dogs. Label it, put a cover on it, and put it in the freezer. Okay, so in case I missed anything, I don't think the scale was necessary reading in pounds and ounces, so that didn't quite work out. What I was trying to do there with the scale is to show you the weight of the full container prior to using it, and then show you the tare weight afterward. I didn't quite get that, but just for your knowledge, the salt, pepper, and garlic is liberally done to both sides of the meat. Can't really go too wrong with that. That's what it looks like seasoned. So for this size of brisket, which I think was about 5 pounds, I use 4 cups of carrots and 4 cups of onion. Don't peel the carrots, the tips, as I said earlier, to save for the dog. Quantities are very flexible. This is what the brisket looks seared, both sides. You must leave the fat on the brisket. You need it for the cooking process. Here's the fond. I'm using a Teflon pan. You don't have to if you're afraid of the chemicals. Teflon. The objective here is to really develop a good caramelization and color in your onions. You throw in your carrots. I'm trying to develop as much sweetness in the carrots because that's where it's going to give another dimension to the sauce. The trick with the bay leaves is you don't want to use little crumbled up bay leaves because you need to be able to fish them out later. Here's some tomato paste that I added in addition to the tomato ketchup. About 2 to 3 tablespoons of ketchup, about the same with the tomato paste. I add boiling water to the brisket, so it's just almost covered. And covered, let simmer 2.5 to 3 hours until your fork goes in, and pretty easily. If you overcook it, it's going to fall apart on you. And here's the process improvement. When it's done cooking, I separate the brisket from the liquids and the solids, and I separate the solids from the liquid. The brisket goes in a refrigerator wrapped overnight so it gets nice and cold, and so does the liquid and my solids. That's actually finished gravy I'm looking at right there. I'll go back to show you what it starts at. That's the gravy that's been blended and defatted. I've set the mandolin here to a 1/16 of an inch. I like working with the aluminum heating trays, standard size. The trick here was the mandolin. Slicing it on the mandolin across the grain is just incredible. You'd think that this went through one of those expensive globe slices, the way the slices are coming out of here. As you can see, the meat is very lean here. You can trim it to your heart's content, take out the fat. Here's the fat cap. Next picture I'm going to show you that I've taken the fat cap off. That actually gets chopped up for the dog. Here's what the slices look like, and you can see this is a very lean piece of meat. The bay leaves go back in because it helps with the sauce. I layer in the meat nicely into the catering tray, and that's the fatted gravy, and that's the gravy with the solids pureed. This takes a few minutes in a blender. As I said earlier, the oatmeal has nothing to do with this recipe. I put the gravy in so that it saturates. I saved the trimmings for the dog, the meat. Okay, you gotta be careful because I did work with garlic and onion here, which is no good for the dog. So if you made this, let me know. Enjoy.